Enterprise TV, a tradition of truth.
Hello and welcome once more. This is America Decides right here on Enterprise Television. I am Henry EQBK. So straight up, let's kickstart what's happening right now in the United States of America, especially as the elections, kicks on, and of course votes it's currently being counted. But just before today, let's give you a rundown on what has been happening before now. Trump and Harris have delivered, that is, a day before today, their closing arguments in Michigan and Pennsylvania, respectively. And to run you through all that is at stake right about now, here are facts that I think you should know. Trump predicted a large victory following a tirade of false claims about widespread voter fraud already. The Republican nominee suggested that he survived an assassination attempt earlier this year because, hear this, that God had a plan to make him president again in the United States of America. Now, he also once made an effort to win over Muslim and Arab votes, that is voters in Michigan, dissatisfied with Harris' support for Israel war in Gaza. But the question I think it's important that we ask is, why would Trump think that he is loved by Muslims when his own support for Israel is so very addictive? Well, that's what politicians do after all. But let's have a conversation. With me to do this, I have Emeka Madunagu, journalist and public affairs analyst. Thank you so very much, Emeka, for being part of our show today. Now, this is very symbolic in the history of the world. As the superpower of the world, United States, it's very pivotal to the rest of the economies around the world. What have you got to say about this issue? Number one, let's start with the claims by Donald Trump that the reason he survived both assassinations was because God wanted him to be president. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think that is just, it was just being funny. That's just a fantasy. Yeah, because Donald Trump has actually stirred up violent rhetoric in his campaigns. You saw the kind of thing he did after he lost, where you had those Proud Boys, the Proud Boys who invaded Congress. You saw all of those things, and he has not relented from that, making bizarre false claims. Claims that have been found to be false. He has not backed down from it. And of course, yes, there was a security breach in the first attempt, but the suspected assailant was gone down. So that shouldn't actually play a role, in all of this, because religion is a private affair. So, saying that God wanted him, God wanted him to use all those violent rhetoric. What is he talking about? But of course, there is this general sentiment. In America, if you pander to certain religious beliefs in a way, in a clever way, like what Donald Trump is doing, you have a lot of people who are likely rooting for you, but it doesn't work out a lot of times. I think there was a presidential candidate who moved along that line, if I remember well, but it didn't work out for him so well. So I don't think that's going to sway American voters
really
around. Yes.
All right, but let's take a look at this other issue. In Michigan, is one state in America with so many Arab Americans, of course, who are qualified to vote, and it's a swing state. Donald Trump is saying that it's possible that he might win the interest of such electorates in that particular state. But going by his actions, especially towards Israel while he was in power, total support for Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel, do you think it's possible for a typical average Muslim American to vote for Donald Trump as against Kamala Harris?
Well, the most significant thing that Trump did was to declare that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel.
Exactly, and equally took the consulate.
Just for economic measure,
Mm.
cost-saving measure, so that you diplomatic, facility taking care of Israeli affairs. I mean, it's bilateral ties with Israel, and the same thing with Palestine. That's all. So it's not as if anything significant came out of that. Although there are people, who want to latch onto that, to advance different kinds of theories. But to me, what matters is that the American on the street, how has he or she, fed, over the last 4 years, over the last 8 years, remember, how have they fed? If you remember that the previous 4 years, the penultimate 4 years were actually under Donald Trump. Even though Donald Trump is claiming that as president, the economy was better. But the point is to ask, do Americans generally feel that way? Do Americans feel that, you asked about Muslims, in America? Yes.
Maybe because I can still remember very vividly, he totally banned Muslims from not entering America while he was in power then.
Well, did he totally ban Muslims?
Yeah, he did. Especially from some of the some of the Arab-speaking countries.
That didn't help anything. Iran still went ahead to do its nuclear stuff. It didn't stop anything. You saw Hamas was still waxing strong. Hamas was still able to do so. To attack Israel. Iran was still able to still develop capacity to attack Israel. So it's not like he claims, okay, there was no war, yes, but even though there was no war, because you engaged in backdoor, diplomacy with a lot of those countries, hostile to Israel. But don't forget, this whole thing has a history. Remember the 6-day war, of June 5, 1967. That started June 5, 1967. What happened? Then there was a president of America. Then what happened? And since 1971, there was 1973. There was another conflict, and going on and on and on and on. Was it in 2006? There was also a violent confrontation. So the thing is that you cannot just totally hang everything on whoever is the American leader. There's a way things also take a life of their own in the Middle East. You've seen as of 1967, Saudi Arabia and Egypt led the coalition of Arab states.
Yeah, against Israel. But now they are becoming.
Now look at what has happened. Saudi Arabia is not interested in it. As a matter of fact, the United States had to call Saudi Arabia Bahrain or some other country to say, okay, how can we resettle Palestinians whose homeland Gaza has been destroyed? What do we do? They held a meeting some days ago. So you can see that global politics is about dynamics. Dynamic, it changes, left and right. There's no you cannot just predict that this is how global politics will go for a long time. Now you're looking at the South China Sea, where you have the Philippines, you have Japan, you have Taiwan. China has been making some moves, diplomatic moves, to get Taiwan isolated. But the United States doesn't want that. And you can see, that even under the Democrats, they made efforts to push China back. What Donald Trump has basically said is that he will make sure that American production leaves China and comes to America. But how will that help to improve the U.S. economy?
Especially with those at the World Trade Organization are actually, not simpatical with that particular move. It's
businessmen will go to where their interests are.
Yeah.
It's not about political considerations. Nobody cares about what you think as a politician. What they're interested in is this: are you willing to give them the kinds of conditions that will enable them to relocate their production to the United States? You are not able to. Do you have the kind of technological flexibility that China has?
Well, they might have all of that, but of course, with regards to labor, the cost of labor, I think that is very significant also.
If they had, those businessmen would have trooped back
to America.
To America. When you talk about cost of labor, it's about in a number of factors. If the government makes it possible, of course, that's why you see also that some governments, even including the United States, have been trying to lure immigrants, to their countries, but in the end, it doesn't really count so much because China actually has an economic policy that is able to keep it ahead of the thinking in the United States. And if you get to know, interestingly, the Communist People's Congress started holding its meeting, yesterday, November 4 to 8 in China. They are going to take, certain critical decisions. So definitely, by holding that meeting at the same time when the U.S. presidential election is tells you that, maybe China is thinking of turning the page on a number of issues.
Very true.
If you even look at it, oil producing countries are also looking in direction of China to see what China will do and how it will affect the price of oil. Now, Donald Trump has said that he's going to pump more oil, that he's going to increase fracking in the United States, and with the target of sustaining 13 million barrels per day. Now, he has also said that he wants oil to remain not go beyond $60 per barrel, and that's going to spell bad news for countries like Nigeria.
Yeah, very OPEC. Yes.
No, OPEC, but especially countries like Nigeria. A country like Saudi Arabia has significantly diversified away from oil, but Nigeria has remained stuck. Solely
dependent on oil.
So, so stuck on oil. So when you look at it, at the holistic picture, you just find out that look, it's not going to be easy if it's different strokes for different folks depending on who wins.
Yeah, where you're looking at.
Yeah, and then you look at the issue of illegal immigrants. You've got to take note of the fact that a lot of these immigrants send a lot of money back home. They account for a lot of diaspora remittances to their countries. Now, Donald Trump, even as of yesterday in Michigan, he was telling Arab voters that yes, he would ensure large deportations. How do you say that to people
while going to elections?
How do you say that just
on the eve to elections? Yeah.
How do you say such a thing? Politicians are strange people anyway. Because I don't imagine that you're telling people that you're going to keep them out of the United States,
and you still want them to vote for you.
To vote for you to keep them out. I wonder how that sounds.
They're the sense of it.
Politicians are strange people.
Yeah.
The ways in which they think and view issues, really need to be studied.
Yes, and investigated. Very well. All right, so while we talk about that, Harris was in Pennsylvania, also a swing state that is crucial to Democrats to address supporters at the steps of the Philadelphia Museum of Art. She outlined how she plans to build an economy that will bring down the cost of living and promised to make housing and childcare more affordable. The Democratic nominee cautioned her supporters not to be complacent. Truth be told, the U.S. had dozens of elections, but this arguably is the closest candidates have found themselves not knowing who might win the race. But according to 538 national presidential poll this morning, that's a tracker, Harris is slightly ahead with 48.1% of the vote, as at having counted that, while Trump is not far behind for 46.8%. While that might slightly trouble Trump and most Republicans, let's talk about the 1 million naira a day voter sweepstakes operated by a political group established by billionaire Elon Musk, and which a judge in Pennsylvania has approved to continue. Now, last month, the world's richest man announced he would start the giveaway in 7 battleground states like to decide the outcome of the United States 2024 elections. Musk giveaway was widely seen by many as an unsubtle attempt to secure extra vote for Republican candidate Donald Trump, who Musk himself has thrown his vocal and financial support behind. He has, of course, given about $75 million to PAC, a political action committee that has been funding various Republican candidates, including former President Donald Trump. Emeka Madunagu, we've seen lots of elections in America. This is the first time we see gratification in open glare being given to win people over to their side. Now, when you compare that to what's happening in Nigeria, do you think it's permissible to have someone say, this is what I'm going to give, everyone come vote for us?
You know, the thing that came to my mind was that, is this vote buying, is it an African thing?
Elon Musk is African.
African,
yeah.
From South Africa.
Yeah.
You know, so it just came to, is it an African thing? Why is it that, why is Elon Musk doing things? Why is he doing that? Why? What does he intend to gain? Talking about sweepstakes and all. Why? Why are you doing that? Because in the end, they are going to still point to your original or, place of origin.
Yeah.
And that will be a slight on Africa.
Well, he's actually American. His grandfather is American. He was just born in South Africa, which of course he has said, but his grandfather is American.
One of his great-grandfather?
I do not know, but he said that his grandfather is American.
Look, the U.S. media will always find a way to tie it back. They will always find a way. But the thing is, it's not just about it. I haven't been born in South Africa, so somewhat there is, there are some things you can trace to it. After all, Barack Obama became U.S. president because he was born where? He was born on U.S. territory,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So that's it. So of course you can tie somebody, to some extent, based on where they were born. But that's just that you do. What I'm saying is that of course the matter is in court, is in court, and is likely to attract. But it's already in the state courts, so it's also likely to attract, federal, the attention of federal courts, because people have said they are going to go to court to challenge, mount some serious challenges to, that. But
because that's very strange to Americans, very, very strange.
But well, politicians will always find a way. You've also had threats now. Threats to voters in past elections, yes. You've had threats to voters. You have some of those things. There are some of these funny things that politicians still do in some of these elections. Not just in Africa, but around the world. So, well, the point is that I don't think it will significantly decide.
Okay.
Yeah, you're just doing all that in Philadelphia, basically. I don't think it's going to really sway the voters, because Americans really always want a better deal.
Exactly.
And don't forget, President Joe Biden Jr. has done a lot in getting student debts cancelled. It's a big deal. Getting student debts cancelled is a big deal. It's a big deal. And you have a lot of first-time voters.
Yeah.
So everybody's going to think that, wait a minute, if, we keep the Democrats in power, that maybe we might, find a way to reduce student debt.
Yeah.
And then overall, get the American economy working in such a way that, in ways that will increase the economic power of the average American. So I think a lot of these things will come into play.
All right, so finally, just before we wind up for today, it's becoming very interesting, but funnily, let's narrow this to Nigeria. Every Nigerian politician is so very interested in what's happening in the United States of America, hoping to know who will, take the lead.
That's our largest trading partner.
Yeah, exactly. But why does it now look like we do not want to borrow from their strategy when it comes to our own time of election?
Theirs is based on electoral college votes, 538
Yes.
electors, and not necessarily who wins the popular vote that wins. There are those things here and there. It's up until January 6th before, Congress will now finally validate everything that's been done and then confirm, the winner. So, which in the last, which 4 years ago was why the Proud Boys invaded
the Capitol.
to try to stop that from happening.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but they couldn't do anything. They couldn't really do much. So Nigeria, has a lot to learn from the United States. We copied the presidential system of government from them. We have a chance to actually look at the fact that despite its problems, despite its challenges, despite things that are still racism, things like that,
gun violence and all.
Yes, and all of that. But the United States still continues to evoke a strong sense of citizenship and nationality in its people, and which is very important. How many Nigerians are proud to be
Nigerians? Proud to be Nigerian. Yeah.
Well, you just ask the average person, who are you? You say I'm Yoruba, I'm Igbo. Somebody will even from one small area will tell you that he's from that ethnic nationality, and will come and say, yes, the British coupled us together, but we forget the fact that some states that, there was a Louisiana Purchase, you understand? There were the way the states in the US
put together. It's the same, almost same format. Yeah, exactly. Because the whole of California actually wasn't supposed to be, but today it is.
So what would those ones say? So what it tells you is that they continue to make efforts. It's a large country, over 300 million people. It's a large, so they continue to make efforts to, get over
the differences,
divisions, to heal their divisions, to become one country. At least they produce a black president.
And they're about to possibly have
another. They're looking at possibly electing a female president, with some black roots. So what does that say? It talks about a society that's constantly evolving. A society that's constantly in a conversation with itself. Gun violence, how do we deal with gun violence? There are divergent views, but people are speaking up anyway. Then they're also looking at the prospect of 20 minutes. Donald Trump has been convicted. We have a presidential candidate that has been convicted. But the law say that he cannot be stopped, prevented from running for office. So, do we allow that? Would a convict, be allowed to, take a job in a private, even in government, in the civil service? The answer is no. So, how do we deal with that? Then the issue of immigrants. What are we going to do with the issue of immigrants? Abortion rights. What are we going to do about abortion rights? What are we going to do about a lot of things? Transgender and all of those LGBTQ and all of those things. Then how are we going to handle, countries like, in Africa, Africa, at least more and more countries in Africa are becoming democratic, but how do we ensure the rule of law? There's still a lot of conflict around Africa. Then you have the incursion of Russia. Interestingly, Russia, the Biden administration had to warn Russia not to interfere in the U.S. election. And so when you look at all of those things put together, the United States is a dynamic society. But the problem with Nigeria is that we allow our differences to continue to continuously fight. We don't know that, we don't see the fact that those differences are actually talking points and working points for us. They're actually assignments for us to say, how do we make this country better? Because if we break Nigeria up into any number of countries,
there'll still be issues even within the little.
It's going to take each side
pocket,
at least 100 years to find its feet. We think it's easy. It's not easy to run a country. Otherwise, South Sudan, by now will be one of the shining lights in Africa.
Yeah.
Look at Namibia that gained independence was in 1980, but still they have issues. Look at Botswana, with a small population, they still have issues.
All right. That's just about the time we have for our show today. America decides. We'd love to say thank you, Emeka, for your incisive discussion with us today. So that's just about the time we have. Love to say thank you to you. But please do well to visit us on our website to hear more on this at enterprisetvnews.com. Also like, comment, and follow us on all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV7. I am Henry Igwebike. Next time, it won't be America decides, it will be stating and telling you who the real president of America is. Thank you so very much. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.